Hello. So I got a comment on yesterday's video asking me not to use CoPilot because part of the fun is watching me try to solve the problems, and when CoPilot does some of the solving for me, that makes it less fun. So I'm a little bit torn actually. I'm of two minds on this. One, I kind of get that, and as I've mentioned, it does feel like I'm cheating. On the other hand, it's actually really interesting to me to see like what CoPilot does and how much it can figure out. And from my perspective, I think that makes the coding kind of interesting. But I don't know. So I'm going to use it today. Um, Leave a comment if you have a real strong opinion, and maybe I'll stop using it, or maybe I'll keep using it. Maybe I'll pay attention to your comments, or maybe I won't. I don't know. Um, uh, I might. So anyway, today we are going to do day 3. So let us go figure out what the problem is. Day 3. Submarines are making some odd creaking noises. He has to produce a diagnostic report. Just in case, diagnostic report consists of a list of binary numbers which, when decoded properly, can tell you many useful things about the conditions of the submarine. The first parameter to check is the power consumption. You need to use the binary numbers in the diagnostic report to generate two new binary numbers called the gamma rate and the epsilon rate. Power consumption can then be found by binary. Each bit can be determined by finding the most common bit in the corresponding position of all numbers in the diagnostic reports. For example, given the following diagnostic report, considering only the first bit of each number, there are 5 0 bits and 7 1 bits. Since the most common bit is 1, the first bit of the gamma is 0. The most common second bit is 0, third, fourth. So the gamma rate is the binary number 10110. So in a similar way, rather than using the most common bit, the least common bit from each position is used. So the epsilon rate is that, multiplying the gamma rate, the epsilon rate, is the power consumption. Use the binary numbers in the diagnostic report. What is the power consumption of the submarine? Okay, so that seems, again, relatively straightforward. And I suspect that CoPilot is not going to help me that much today. And so input equals, I don't want that. I just want to split lines. So I'm going to leave these as strings. Okay? And now what I want to do is most common bits. Actually, let me call this, what is it? Gamma rate? Gamma rate. So let me call it gamma. So let me call it gamma rate. And CoPilot won't even know what to do with this one. Oh, it's doing something, but that's not right at all. And so what I'm going to get is I'm going to get some numbers, which is actually a list of strings. And it is also going to return me a string. It's underlining it like it doesn't like this because let me just see. This is what I was worried about. Why did it the other way? Python day 03.py. That works. So I'm just going to do it the other way so that it doesn't give me that red underline, because that red underline is going to annoy me. I don't know why VS Code isn't letting me choose a Python interpreter, but it is not. Okay. So anyway, what I want to do is I want to do from collections import counter. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to say digits, let's just say m equals len of number 0. So I just want to know how long that is. I don't want that in as linked numbers. And so what I want to do is I want to say counts equals counter number I for number in numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to count what are the digits in position 0, what are the digits in position 1, and so on for I in range M. Okay, so that's going to give me a bunch of counters. And then it's saying because this is I want a string, I want to return something joined, which, okay, I can do that. And so what do I want to do is I want to do counter dot most common 1 0. I don't want that second 0 for counter in counts. What is it not liking? Arguments cannot be assigned to parameter iterable. Oh, CoPilot was right and I'm wrong. So most common dot 1 is going to give me a list of the 1 most common, and then I actually want the first element of that list, and so I want to assert that gamma rates of inputs equals, I don't think that's right. That's. So let's see if that's good. And then what was the other one called? Epsilon rate is the least common bit. So the epsilon rate is just the negating every bit, right? So if I want to do epsilon rate of the numbers, which is a list of strings, it goes to the string. What I can do is I can say gr equals gamma rate, and this is going to result in me computing it twice, but I don't care. And 1 if C equals 0, else 0 for C in GR. Okay, so I'm just going to flop that and now assert that epsilon rate input equals, that's not right either. So equals that. And now what I want is power consumption. And so power consumption is the product of, so here again I'm going to cheat and see numbers list. Here's what I've been wanting to do, because I'm curious if CoPilot can do this. Computes the gamma rate and epsilon rates, converts them to base 10, and returns their product. Okay, so pretty smart of CoPilot, right? This is I don't feel bad because that's exactly what I would have written. But you can see that that's actually really interesting, right? Like it read my comment and then figure that out. So that's cool, right? And assert that power consumption of input equals, and I don't know why it writes these test cases like that, is 198. So let me just do that. Okay, so that's good. So now let me get the input. Get your puzzle input. Okay, so it's got 1,000 numbers like that. And now let's go back to dao3.py and say if name equals main. It hasn't learned not to do this. Numbers equals open data dao3.text .read.splitlines. All right, and it knows to print the power consumption of the numbers. So, okay, so on one hand this is cheating, on the other hand it hasn't done anything that I wouldn't have done basically the exact same way. So, so now I get this. Let's copy it and punch it in. Okay, continue to part 2. Next, you should verify the life support rating, which can be determined by multiplying the oxygen generated rating by the CO2 scrub rating. Both the oxygen are values that can be found in the diagnostic report, finding this tricky part. Both values are located using a similar process that involves filtering out values until only one remains. Before searching for either rating value, start with a full list of binary numbers. Consider just the first bit of those numbers. Then keep only numbers selected by the bit criteria for the type of rating value for which you are searching. Discard numbers. If you have only one number left, stop. This is the rating value. Otherwise, repeat the process, considering the next bit to the right. The bit criteria depends on what kind of rating value you want to find. To find the oxygen generator rating, determine the most common value in the current bit position and keep only numbers with that bit in that position. If 0, 1, to find CO2 scrub rating, determine the least common value in the current bit position and keep only numbers with that bit in that position. If 0 and 1 are equally common, keep values with the 0 in the position being considered. For example, to determine the oxygen generator value, okay. Okay, so I don't think CoPilot is going to be super helpful on this one either. So let us. The question is, do I want to write one function that will do both? And I don't think I do. I think I'm just going to write one and then copy and paste and change. Actually, this is going to be a string because I'm not going to convert it. So again, I want to do m equals len of number 0, so I know for I in range m. Okay, and so what do I want to do? Zeros equals 0, ones equals 0. For number in numbers, if number I equals 0, 0 is plus equal 1. Otherwise, so the first part of this is what I want. The second part is not what I want, so I'm just going to delete it. And now this is the oxygen generator. So the oxygen generator says determine the most common value. Keep the numbers with that bit. If 0 and 1 are equally common, keep values with a 1 in the position. So that means that if ones is greater than or equal to zeros, if ones is greater than or equal to zeros. So this will happen if there's more ones than zeros, or if there's the same number of ones and zeros. Then what I want to do is I want to keep values with a 1 in the position being considered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say numbers equals n for n in numbers if ni equals 1. Okay. Otherwise, come on, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. All right. Okay, it thought hard, but it did it. Okay. And then finally, what it said is if len of numbers is 1, then I don't need to do that join. It's just return number 0. And then finally, if I get here, raise value error, no solution found, that's fine. So now what I want to do is I want to assert that oxygen generator rating of input is, and let's go back and say, okay, so let's run that, and that passes. And now we have as well a CO2 scrubber rating, which is basically the exact, which is the least common value, and keep only numbers with that bit. If 0 and 1 are equally common, keep values with a 0. So, so let me write this function. So this is the CO2 scrubber rating. And now what I want is, let me make sure I get that edge case right, determine the least common value. So I want to find the smallest, and if they're equally common, keep the ones with the 0. So if so it's the same condition actually. So if 0 is less than or equal to 1s, but now I want to hold on, I'm having trouble with my keyboard. Okay, so if the least common value, so if there's fewer zeros or the same number of zeros, then keep numbers that are 0. And if there's fewer 1s, keep 1. So if there's fewer zeros, keep 0. And if there's fewer 1s, keep 1s. Do the same thing. And now I want to assert the CO2 scrubber rating of input equals, and that, again, that's not going to be right, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. That is right. I think that's got to be just dumb luck, because there's no way it actually figured that out. Okay, so that's good. And now, finally, find the life support rating, multiply the oxygen generator rating by the CO2 scrubber rating. So, what was it called? Life support rating. And I want this to be an int, first of all. And let me try again. Computes the oxygen generator CO2 scrubber rating. That's what I wanted. Sorry, I'm having trouble with this interface. Converts them to base 10 and returns their product. So it is going to presumably do int of, oxygen generator numbers base 2 times CO2 scrubber rating base 2. Because it knows what to do for my docstring, which is, it's actually super cool. I think that's neat. And now let's do our unit test. You get 230. So assert that life support rating of numbers equals 230, not of numbers, of inputs. So let us do that. That works too. So now, what is the life support rating of the submarine? So let us do print life support rating of numbers. Okay, so let's copy this and punch it in. That's the right answer. Okay, cool. So a couple things. One is that this was just reading carefully, following directions. I mean, every day is reading carefully, following directions. This one especially is reading carefully, following directions, looking for edge cases. The second thing is that, this part was kind of the tricky part, and CoPilot didn't really do the work here. I did the work here. And so CoPilot did the work here. Now, this is like one line of code that would have taken me just as long to write it as it took CoPilot to write it. But the really interesting thing is that we just said, like, if you type power consumption, given those numbers, I don't think it's obvious like what to do there. And so it got it from the docstring, which I think is really cool. You know, I wish everyone I worked with could take the docstring and write code that worked. And then these again, this is sort of a non-obvious thing to do. So CoPilot, it's actually interesting to see. It would be interesting to see if I were to put in as the docstring, like in words, this algorithm, would it be able to do it? I suspect it would, and this algorithm was a little bit complicated. And so, we had to write this again too. But again, given the docstring, it figured this one out, which I think is super cool. So yeah, nothing super exciting going on here, but a fun little problem. And thanks for the help, CoPilot. So again, let me know what you think about me using CoPilot. Today felt less like cheating than the previous 2 days because most of what it did was either filling in things that were obvious or filling in things that were maybe not obvious but relatively simple that was one line of code that I already knew how to write. So yeah, I'm actually finding this CoPilot thing really interesting. So hopefully you like it too. All right, cool. That's it. I will see you tomorrow.